next session, in fact, follows on quite neatly from both our essay competition, which we discussed last night, and a lot of the comments that Don McGauchie made in relation to the changes that have been occurring at a company like AACo, where perhaps 15 or 20 years ago, I guess AACo would have perhaps been the world's biggest exporter of minced beef to the US market, and now, according to Don, is exporting about 80% of its product as branded product, including a fairly substantial exposure to the Wagyu market as a premium market. So we heard the discussion from Don, and we've heard the discussion from others that the challenge in terms of growing the value of the agriculture sector in Australia is going to be that the sector as a whole succeeds in premium markets where you're not just being paid a base commodity price, where there's actually some premium attached to the product that differentiates you from fair average quality. Certainly that's been the strategy expressed by quite a lot of agribusinesses and indeed individual agricultural farming businesses in Australia, and I guess to some extent there's been some success, but questions are asked about how difficult it is, what's needed to achieve that sort of outcome, and how sustainable it is. So we've got two speakers this morning that have been involved in those sorts of areas who are able to talk to us about what they believe is needed in those sorts of markets, whether they're viable or sustainable, and what perhaps needs to happen at a national level to allow those sorts of things to occur. The first is John Power, and I'm just a little bit concerned that I can't see him sitting up here. Ah, there he is. I'm relaxed now. So John's the General Manager of the Batlow Fruit Cooperative Limited, and I'm sure if we think about, particularly in the horticulture sector, the brands, if you like, that are there and are recognised and are given some credence in the market, Batlow's probably one of the ones that stands out amongst a pretty thin field, I must say, in Australia. So John's the General Manager of the Batlow Fruit Cooperative, and I guess the other point about that is it's a cooperative, which is not something that's necessarily got a good history in Australia. He joined Batlow in July 2011. Prior to that, he managed large and diverse agribusinesses, including the Proserpine Cooperative Sugar Milling Association in Queensland, 4 CSR sugar mills with fairly large renewable energy generation systems, milling about 20% of Australia's sugar. He was CEO of Maryborough Sugar, a listed sugar grower and miller, and Operations Director of a specialty chemical manufacturing company. John's also a graduate member of the AICD, a Fellow of the Australian Marketing Institute, and is a certified practicing marketer and holds a Bachelor of Business in Marketing. So our first speaker in this session, talking about premium markets and the realities of those and where Australian agriculture fits in those, is John Power. Please welcome him.
Sorry. Good morning. Just get used to where this microphone is. Is that fine for everyone? The first question is, some of you probably asking, where the hell's Batlow? We're about halfway between Melbourne and Sydney. Very close to halfway, about 50 k's out of the middle. And basically we're south of Gundagai, about 60 kilometres. Batlow Apples has been a cooperative for 93 years, started in 1922. Today we are a fully branded producer of high quality apples, and recently, about 4 years ago, we launched into apple cider. Today we're quite a rapidly growing cider brand, Batlow Cider, and we just recently purchased a apple juicing factory which starts to close some of the gaps in our cider production chain. And so we're now one of the largest apple juice producers in the country. Currently we don't brand that, but watch that space. When I was asked to talk about premium markets, I guess I thought I'd better go through what makes a premium apple, which is our core business. So in our terms, we have all ways of measuring these, but in a simple term, it's skin pressure, an apple that delivers a crunch, which is what people like when we do testing. It has to have the right mouthfeel, and that's a balance between fructose and starch. And so when we're harvesting the fruit prior to storage, we take a lot of attention. Our field service technicians are out in the field testing all the fruit and scheduling harvest and delivery with the growers. Obviously colour. Australian market is probably the hardest market in the world in terms of colour expectation of the buyers. And when I say buyers, I mean the buyer who stocks the retail shelves, not necessarily the final consumer, because final consumers will actually buy much lower coloured fruit, but the chain buyers and other supermarkets look for that high colour. And it must be true to variety, so you've got to make sure that the fruit is grown well, and it must have no blemishes, both skin blemish and internal blemish. So no internal browning, no rot in the centre, and no water cool. The second part of a premium market is how do you find those people prepared to pay the highest price for the best quality. Now, we've focused on that over a very long time in our business, and we understand the location of the retailers who have the high price point customers. We know where they are, we have relationships with them. We also understand the channels of how to get to those retailers, because it's not all direct supply. And we've developed communication strategies that promote our brand to those final end customers. The apple market's actually got three classes or three routes to market. Hopefully you can see there on the left-hand side the greengrocer. Greengrocers are in a range of quality standards. We have a small sector of them which is only premium product. They will not stock anything that is not premium, and I'll talk a bit about all these three in a moment in more detail. Then there's a section of fruit retailers, greengrocers, that are in that middle to lower price sector, and typically it's about where they're located and where their customers live and the socio-economic level of those customers. Then you've got a medium-sized retailer, and I'd give you some examples. There's quite a few more than that, but they're probably two that everyone would know. And of course the last is the largest sector at 55% of the throughput, which is the majors. So what is a greengrocer? If you can see the price on that sticker, that was from a week ago in one of our premium retailers, $13.99 a kilo with Batlow Fuji apples. That's just typical of the price that our fruit will sell for in one of these retailers. Yes, they're a small segment, but they're a very loyal segment, and they understand our brand proposition, and they will buy exclusively fruit from Batlow. Often they only own 1 to 5 stores, the people in this market. They serve the customer who wants the highest level of quality and freshness. They buy in the market every day. They're in there at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. They pick the produce, load it on their truck, take it back to their store, and the customers are buying it almost the same day. So we'll deliver into the market at midnight. It'll get unloaded. They'll be there. It's back on their truck and gone. 3 to 4 hours. It's actually in their shop. So you really can't get much fresher than these people. They're very good at product presentation. They understand how to present fruit. They've got the beautiful mirrors up the top, looking down on the fruit. The lighting is perfect. They have trained staff that can engage with the customer, talk about where the fruits come from, you know, what type of location is it, about the quality parameters. They'll often point them to our app so people can go and look at things and get a recipe or do something. They will promote the brand and the provenance of Batlow, and that helps us because we support them with all the point of sale, and we support them with the things behind that, the websites and the apps and that. They'll provide advice, as I said, and they, by a long way, achieve the highest price in the market. If you went into Coles on the same day that was $13.99, Coles were selling Fuji's at $3.99. Obviously not the same fruit. So the medium-sized retailer, they're group owned, like Harris Farm or IGA or some of the privately owned. They serve customers that demand, they'd like to get high to medium quality and convenience, but they actually only stock average quality fruit at a low to average price, because often they're just down the road from the nearest Coles and Woolworths or Aldi, and they have to compete. They have to have a proposition or the customers won't come to them. Product presentation is all about how easy it is to present it, the easiest way. They've got low skilled staff, not a lot of training support, they don't understand the products, they can't talk to customers, it's not their way of doing business. So they just present it on a little open bin or something like that, and people help themselves with limited advice. They will, however, promote a producer's brand. So if we run a promotion, which we do regularly, and I'll show you some in a minute, they'll actually allow us to come in and put all the promotional signage up. They'll participate, but they still don't provide advice even on how to fill out the form. So we've got to do everything if we go into their shops. The last segment in the major chains, obviously they've got many, many stores. They have the lion's share of the market, 55%, but their focus is all about low cost to them, not low cost to everyone else. If we deal with these people, we get more costs in our system, and typically we achieve a lower price. There's almost no interaction with the customer, so and there's in fact a resistance to brands, and we often are required to pack without our sticker and to use a generic sticker if we supply into these customers. They're moving to pre-packaged product, and it's all driven on reducing losses in their system, reducing pilfering, reducing people declaring the wrong thing on the cash, on the self-serve, and reducing spoilage. If there's an apple in there with something wrong with it, they often can't see it, and it goes out of the shop. Doesn't go in the bin. So they love that thing. Today, most of their purchases are from very large producers or from consolidators. So like a supply chain consolidator who will take fruit from many different growers and then put it into orders. They claim in all their marketing to support producers, but on the ground there's very little evidence of that. And of course they're the lowest price. So when you're faced with that market and you want to achieve a premium, this is what Batlow has done. And this has been, I guess, fine-tuned over a period of time. We target the greengrocer. Their location's correlated to the customer who will pay the most and who wants that quality. They purchase in person, so we can have a relationship with that supplier, the retailer. Their produce is there, as I said earlier, within 3 hours. They welcome point of sale, support to their staff, all the other marketing activities that we do. We target the promotions that we do to their customer. So we know that people who buy those apples are also very much into, home quality cooking, and we target promotions at that. We target ski holidays for the mum and dad and the kids. We target school education programs to help them do things including fundraising at their schools. And we provide personalised information to the customer via our electronic supports. So how do we wash up compared to all that? First of all, we're East Coast focused, which makes a lot of sense. We're almost equidistant Melbourne, Sydney, but we focus on Sydney. The reason for that is the Goulburn Valley is in Victoria, and it is the largest apple producing area in Australia with over 50% of the production. So Melbourne, there's a small high-end premium market that we target, but we're not into the mass markets in Victoria. New South Wales, on the other hand, we are the predominant player in the premium end of the market. And in recent years, we've grown our share in the premium market in Queensland, despite there being local production out of Stanthorpe. You can see on the second chart, 84% of our volume is direct into via appointed wholesalers that we contract with very, very tight terms, tighter than the Horticulture Code of Conduct, so we get the best outcome for our growers. That's across the 3 states. Direct retail supply is only 12%, and we use it for our lower quality fruit. They want it in a crate, we put it in a crate, we put a generic sticker on, and away it goes. And direct sales, we have a small number of customers that are prepared to pay a premium, like Light and Easy, to get a Batlow apple in their lunchboxes. So how do we stack up in those 3 segments? Altogether, we're about 9% of the national crop. In the greengrocer market, we actually supply 24% of that market. If you remember, earlier I said it was 26%, so that was 2014 statistics. We have the largest share of that market. That market also, you may recall I said there was a lower end and a higher end, and predominantly we have secured that higher end in that market. And together, that's actually 6% of the national supply. So 6 out of our 9 we're directing into that marketplace. The mid-sized retail, some of it's direct, some of it is via the wholesale market. It's 8.5%, and nationally, out of the total market, that's about 1.6% of the total. And we do 2% into major chain. That's all we represent in the major chains, 55, 2%. Why can we do it? A lot of people ask me this. I didn't create any of this. Batlow, if anyone's been there, is very high altitude compared to most places. It has a natural advantage in terms of climate. The fruit is easy to grow in terms of comparison to other places, of course, to get pressures right, colour especially. I'll cover some of that in a minute. All of those things, some we solve with the conditions, some by good agronomics. We have a horticulturalist that spends all day, every day, out there with our growers, making sure they're getting everything right, providing advice. The last one, internal blemish and skin blemish, down the middle there, we deal with sorting technology. Internal blemish is now carried out undestructively, so we put near-infrared light onto the apple as it's flying past, and we look for the absorbance of light, so what is not refracted, and that tells us if there's an internal problem in that apple. So there's only a couple of those machines in Australia, and we were the first to put one in. So we can guarantee that apple goes under that line and doesn't get thrown off the side. It does not have an internal problem. And customers are looking for that. Our buyers are looking for that. So what are the regional things that help us? 1,200 millimetres of rain every year, or most years. High altitude, our orchards range from about 750 metres above sea level up to about 1,050. So we're up quite high. We're on the western side of the Snowy Mountains. When it's snowing, we often get 3 to 4 snowfalls a year during the winter. Probably only 50 mil at a time, but still quite a lot. We have very high quality red volcanic soil with reasonable clay percentage, good water holding capacity, very high chill hours. Chill hours are needed for apple trees and for many things like grapes and almonds, you name it. A lot of tree fruit need chill hours. It sets the tree up for good flowering and production. And in fact, if you don't have chill hours above 600 a year, then apples will not flower. And some regions in Australia are bumping along on that level and may be facing some issues going forward. Lastly, we have almost ideal autumn temperatures, a diurnal difference between day and night. It's a very important aspect. That's just a few days from this year. If you can keep the top lower than the blue zone and the nighttime temperature in that green zone at the bottom, then you're hitting the right diurnal difference, which is between high and low in the one day. And that's what gives your fruit colour. And the difference that you get, if you go and look in a greengrocer that might have our fruit and someone else's, something from Shepparton, you will see a marked difference in the vividness of the colour. And that's what people are buying. Plus the fruit is nice and crunchy and sweet. We do have to do a lot of other things. We don't just have advantages. So we've had to spend a lot of money on hail netting, keep the birds and the bats out. We get visits from the cockatoos off the plains at the end of summer, all looking for a feed. And if you don't have netting up and your neighbour does, look out, because they'll find your fruit pretty quickly. We have to cope with frost when the fruit is first setting. So thankfully this year we passed that without any issues. And lastly, same as most other people with fruit, you can get sunburn. You get a couple of days in a row where the temperature's above 36. And if you don't spray the fruit or do something to reduce that temperature impact, then you can get big black spots that big on the fruit, and it's useless. It's gone to juice. And no one wants to send fruit to juice. It's just not viable. Apples are grown and harvested in a very short window of about 7 or 8 weeks, which starts at the end of February. Then we need to stay in the market for the balance of the year, and this came out of Australia being so isolated from other countries many years ago, and controlled atmosphere storage was developed. So literally we extract the oxygen, the carbon dioxide, out of the air in the cool room, and we replace it with nitrogen, which is also in the air, and put the nitrogen back in. So we control the atmosphere so the apple literally goes to sleep, and it just sits there at cold temperature until we open the door and let the oxygen back in, and it wakes up. That's why we can keep them fresh. That technology was developed in Australia between CSIRO and Batlow Apples many, many years ago, back in the 70s. High colour grading technology. We put about 400,000 apples a day across our grading machine, which is quite a lot. The machine gets a pretty good workout and does a good job and produces good quality. We have fruit leaving the premises 6 days a week normally. And marketing and pricing, selling, we have people on the ground in the market at 2 o'clock. So when the wholesaler receives his fruit,